Uh, uh, Good evening. Could I ask you to take your seat, please? We are going to start our last session. That's the policy session soon. So once again, good evening to you all. And as you are aware that we have reached in the last sessions of today's conference that we call a policy session. The aim of this session is precisely to talk about what we had the full day discussions. And based on the discussions, we have a number of panelists who are the renowned in terms of their own capabilities to talk about how we are going to take forward the Vision 2041 now and the beyond. Without any further ado, so I would like to ask Honorable Dean of the Slash, Dr. Thayyibur Rahman, to present a brief of today's discussions throughout the day. As you are aware that we have got 14 panel, 55 presenter and 133 participants. And we have the participant from 10 countries. So Dr. Thayyibur Rahman is going to present the summary of the sessions that what we have derived from today's findings. And after that, the floor will be opening for other panelists' discussion. So Dr. Thayyibur Rahman, please.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening to you all. I am here once again, and this is a difficult task because it has been a long day and people are already tired. You are already aware that 55 papers have been presented here already, and I have to cover all this in 10 to 15 minutes. This is a daunting task. I think I cannot do it. So what I will do, I will just try to, give a sense of what happened during the whole day. So, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Niaz Ahmed Khan, and we have in the dais Dr. Fahmida Khatun, Executive Director CPD, Dr. Anand Raihan, Chairman iSocial, Professor Imtiaz Hossain, Head GSG Program IOB, and our chief guest, Md Hafizur Rahman, Additional Secretary and Director General WTO Cell, Ministry of Commerce, Bangladesh government, and we have Ms. Nilufa Zafrullah. She is not here, and thank you very much for coming. And let me just, it will be really difficult for me to speak and to make a summary of this because I have just received it. So let me go a bit faster, and I hope that it will help to some extent to get idea of what we have done during the whole day. So panel on, the title of panel on is Rohingya in Bangladesh, Forced Migration, Problematic Repatriation and Settlement Solution. Critical argument include that SDG implementation should be the focus. And we need to review whether Bhashanchar emulates the same crisis that we observe in Cox's Bazar. And the recommendation that we have from this panel is that relocation of Bhashanchar needs to be coordinated, comprising or accommodating all the stakeholders. At present, coordination looks like piecemeal basis that is going on there. Second panel, coping strategy and informal economy. The challenges that have been discussed in that session is that COVID has impacted on the livelihood of RMG worker in manifold psychological, physical, economic, social, and so on. And the recommendation that we received from this panel is that decent work need to include the perspective of the workers themselves. And a visionary plan should be designed with a detailed database of all migrant workers to create an inventory of need-based and skilled workforce as a long-term solution. Panel 3 is on environment and climate change, and we have got the following critical argument. So due to COVID, a new class of poor people emerged and they could not buy sanitary pads. Education has been compromised. Consequently, the notion of menstrual hygiene too. Climate risk assessment need to be done in the context of river erosion, and proper cost-benefit analysis has to be done. Climate-induced migration should be understood from the perspective of affected people. Recommendation, practical structure and non-structural approaches and programs have to be put in place to reduce vulnerability and develop local adaptation process in order to improve livelihood and risk management in the river erosion areas. Government support program needs to be ensured in implementing menstrual hygiene education and subsidized support to related sectors. Fourth panel is on understanding digital responsibility among the Bangladeshi youth. Critical argument has been made that young people are an essential part of any development process. So it is critical to understand the perspective of young people about their digital behavior and knowledge. The issue of digital citizens should be promoted among the people in Bangladesh, and they need to be taught how to use internet ICT for a better cause. Panel 5, communities in context, integration, accommodation, development. So integration of research, theory, and indigenous knowledge have to be done for the development of the community. And pattern of electronic device uses and perceived behavioral sense among the children have to be reviewed. The panel 6 is on public health, Bangladesh context. Disability issues should be calibrated with SDGs, otherwise it will never fulfill the rigor. Social taboo, cultural context, lack of education are the root causes of inadequacy in menstrual hygiene. Panel 7 is on living with Rohingya refugee host community experiences. The challenges that we have discussed in that panel are a patron-client relationship exists in the Rohingya camp, and the host community, aid worker and Rohingya communities are playing a vital role in this case. A win-win relationship is ultimately creating problem for Bangladesh to send the Rohingya back to their country of origin. Panel 8 is on governance and inclusive development. Critical observation is that meta-governance framework can be a pragmatic and inclusive model for governance. Civil society engagement can be of help to ensure transparency in various stages of beneficiary selection and cash distribution. This is about the cash distribution initiative undertaken by the Honorable Prime Minister. Panel 9, Rohingya crisis through the lens of security. So we have quite a good number of paper on Rohingya camp, Rohingya crisis. And I think we can think of publishing something on Rohingya issue separately. So the critical argument include enhanced understanding of social cohesion from the perspective of the host as well as the Rohingya community is crucial here. International pressure need to be created on the Myanmar government to take their citizen back. Monitoring of the human security situation in Myanmar by the international community has to be done. Recommendation, the international community must take preventive measures in order to stop further genocide and atrocities in Myanmar in future. The repatriation of Rohingya refugees to their native home in Myanmar must be ensured at the earliest. Panel 10 is on foreign policy and politics, transnational perspective. Pattern and outcome of migration, international migration need to be looked within the SAARC countries. The China-Bangladesh relationship could foster alternative source of finance in the coming days. Australia's response to Rohingya issue is still unclear. Panel 11 is on marginalization and resistance, questioning identity, power, and status. Bhavna's Bahawal's notion of third space and hybridity as potential tool of empowering the subalterns in post-colonial systems sound impractical, and the influence of immaterial culture of the West on the non-material culture, the moral identity of urban youth in Dhaka city. Recommendation, the presence of political socialization leads to higher commitment. The panel 12 is on fourth industrial revolution and Bangladesh readiness. Critical argument focused on the following things. Bangladeshi apparel industries need to be proactive to embrace the transformation of Industrial Revolution 4, challenging hegemonic Industrial Revolution theory ontologically and introducing an IR approach based on universal values and identities. Transforming civil service towards 2041 through capacity development to face the challenge of the fourth industrial revolution. Panel 13 is on education in the new frontier, and the discussion that were made are COVID-19 exhibit the future of teaching learning experience among the student and educator across the world, including Bangladesh. Transforming Bangladesh to be a developed nation rely on the approach of how we stop the brain drain. Panel 14 is on emerging cultural discourses in Bangladesh. So youth mindset need to be understood from the multidimensional aspect comprising culture, politics, food, and other issues. Recommendation, coordinated effort among policymakers, parents, education need to be enhanced for better understanding of the youth minds. This is a long, review that I have gone through, and I had to go through very fast. I hope that I have been able to give you a sense of what we have done throughout the day. I will not take much of your time. Thank you so very much for your patient hearing, and I thank all the panel members here for their time and effort. And I wish that IUB will organize this kind of seminar more frequently in the days to come. I thank the Department of Social Science and Humanities and all other 4 departments under the School of Liberal Arts and Social Science for their effort, for their time. You deserve a special appreciation. My colleagues, thank you so very much for making it happen, making it a successful one. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Honorable Dean. So may I request to be put here the Professor Dr. Niyaz Ahmed Khan, Pro Vice Chancellor, IUB. Professor Niyaz Ahmed Khan.
Salam and good evening, everyone. This has been an intense day, and I don't want to hold you up for too long. I just have 2 quick points to make, and I'll take just about 3 to 4 minutes, hopefully. The first point is about recognizing the contribution made by all of you. In the panel, we are joined here by some very distinguished people. I would like to officially recognize their presence. We are honored by the presence of Mr. Hafizur Rahman, a member of the Bangladesh Civil Service Administration and an additional secretary to the government. We have got Dr. Fahmida Khatun, who really doesn't need any introduction. Dr. Anand Rahan, my good friend, chairman of iSocial, and who we have got architect Nilufar Jafarullah, who couldn't join us, but she has sent her apologies. And of course, my good colleagues, Professor Imtiaz Hussain, the Dean, Professor Tayyibur Rahman, and Dr. Kaji Mahmudur Rahman, and the head of the department, Ms. Sharmin Ahmed. I would like to recognize the fact that in just one day, we have covered a lot of grounds. When you have a theme which actually reads something like notions and narratives of diversification and transformation, by definition, this theme is not exhaustive. It is impossible to cover all the dimensions, the niches and the nuances of such a diverse topic. But I would say when I look back into the day's work, 55 papers presented, nearly 100% attendance of the presenters, and the grounds that you have covered. Such a traversing such a diverse mosaic of ideas. What not? Rohingya, through education, foreign policy, community development, fourth industrial revolution, cultural identity, to public health and climate change. More importantly, we have been able to capture some of the highlights of this discussion, which my friend Dr. Toyev has just given you an indicative summary of. I would like to thank each of the presenters. We know most of them at a personal level. COVID is surely in a state where we can start to get back to a level of normalcy. Still, it's not completely over yet. But you have shown the commitment and the courage for a very clear academic cause to respond to our call and to come here and make yourself available to discuss such a wide range of topics. We remain deeply thankful to all of you, my friends. Now, the next point that I would like to make is how best to make most of this exercise. Obviously, we now have a policy brief, which is a useful beginning. In most cases, though, as you have seen in many of these academic discussions, you come out with some policy prescriptions with all the goodwill and intentions. Often they actually fall in deaf ears. Well, we are used to it. But then, as academics, and we also have a mixture of academics and practitioners among us, we need to push this through. We have got this basic summary of the policy brief. We'd like to have your ideas of how to capture all these ideas into a more permanent manner, maybe in the form of some books and journals. IUB has its own set of journals, and we could actually think of a special issue. But beyond these academic outlets, which are very important, of course, but we also need to have a way to reach out to non-specialist audience. And my suggestion would be to try to at least have some popular articles in the newspapers, preferably in Bangla. And of course, when we do Bangla, we can also get an English version of it. I think some of the messages deserve wider audience and attention, much beyond the myopic confines of academics. So the way I see it in terms of capturing and disseminating these ideas, to use the academic outlets, books, journals, etc. And I think with 55 papers, and even through a rigorous screening, we should be able to get, even if we get, let's say 50, 60% ultimately filtered down, and we get a critical mass of, let's say, 30 to 35 papers. That should be good enough for us to keep us busy for at least a year of academic exercise. So again, I thank you for the major contribution that you have made today. And with that, I would just like to invite you to IUB on a more frequent basis. This is one of the series of events that we have in mind to organize and to have platforms of interaction between the academia and the practitioners. We would really like to put emphasis on this academia-practitioners relationship. For some unfortunate reasons, there have been a way of tensions and conflicts between these two worlds, academia and practitioners. I think in order to serve this country in a more befitting manner, we need to have a way to work together, at least at a functional level. With that emphasis, we'd like to invite you, and IUB welcomes any of the ideas and opinions that you might have in taking this exercise forward. We see this to be one of the stepping stones. We'd really like to see this scaled up to a much larger level. Thank you, my friends. Thank you in the panel. Thank you, my friends and participants, for enriching us. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Diaz Ahmed Khan. With this note, may I like to invite Dr. Fahmida Khatun, Executive Director, Center for Policy Dialogue.
I didn't realize, Mahmoud, I'll be speaking first. Good evening, and I would like to thank the Independent University and of course, Dr. Mahmood and the Pro Vice Chancellor, and all the faculty for inviting me to this very important, day-long conference. I can see there are 14 panels, and from the overview, I just, I realized that this have been just such a daunting task for you to organize. And also my congratulations to the audience who have been here for the whole day and listened to it and participating. And of course, thanks to the paper presenters and discussants. So this, in this last session, concluding session, I don't know what to talk about and where to. Mahmoud didn't give me any guidelines, but just I know only the name of the conference. So it's an open-ended thing. So I would I would beg your pardon if I just I just roam around from one aspect to another. But I'll try my best to organize my thoughts and share a few insights with regard to Bangladesh in 2041. So this is very important, actually, theme, the Bangladesh in 2041, notions and narratives of diversification and transformation, because as you know that Bangladesh is just at a crossroad. We have spent 5 decades, we have celebrated Bangladesh's 50 years of journey. And during the last 50 years, the achievements of Bangladesh have been spectacular. Of course, there are limitations, but I would not focus on the limitations right now. But when you talk about looking forward in 2041, then maybe I will draw some of these issues. So as you know that during the last 5 decades, Bangladesh has made a journey, which was a country when during its independence, we inherited an economy which was undiversified, which was a rural agricultural economy with not much opportunities. And also the poverty was so high, and as you remember that the very common and very popular identification or characterization of Bangladesh was that bottomless basket, and also economists have also described at that time that if development is possible in Bangladesh, it can be possible anywhere. It was so poor and it was a highly populated country. So given this whole scenario of socioeconomic phenomena, features, people were very frustrated. But during the last 5 decades, we have made strides. And as you know, at this point in time, it has achieved a number of milestones. We have made progress in terms of growth of gross domestic product or GDP. Per capita income has increased. And as a result of this, we have also made some social progress. Poverty, the number of poverty, both the number of poor people and also the rate of poverty has declined. I'm talking about pre-COVID period. Of COVID has actually reversed some of the achievements not only Bangladesh had made, but globally also. And also the social achievement in terms of gender empowerment, women's participation in the labor force. So that has also been achieved. And also in terms of gender parity in primary education, reduction of maternal mortality, reduction in child mortality. So as you know that during the Millennium Development Goals, Bangladesh has been a stellar performer. It is one of the best performers in terms of achieving the 8 MDG goals that we had, the world had. And now also during the SDG period, Sustainable Development Goals period, you just saw that just a month back or so, the Bangladesh's achievement was recognized by the United Nations at the 75th United Nations General Assembly. So, and also the structural transformation the economy has observed, that from a predominantly agricultural economy, now we have transformed into an industrial and a service-oriented economy. So the structural change has this is also a sign of a modern economy. So when an economy grows, it goes through these phases from agriculture to industry and to the service sector. If you look at the advanced economy, the service sector takes over. The major part of the GDP comes from the service sector. And in Bangladesh also, service sector's contribution is about 50%. So that also shows what is the structure of the economy right now. And meanwhile, while we were making these achievements, we have also been recognized internationally. In 2015, Bangladesh has made a transformation or graduated from low-income country to a lower middle-income country, according to the World Bank's category. As you know, that World Bank has 4 categories: low-income country, lower middle-income country, upper middle-income country, and developed country or advanced country. So we made a transition from low-income country to lower middle-income country. And in 2018, Bangladesh has been considered as a graduating country it has qualified to graduate from a least developed country to a developing country according to the United Nations category. So in the United Nations, they categorize countries into 3 groups: least developed country, developing country, and developed country. So there are 3 criteria, many of you know, but those who are not so familiar, the first one is the per capita GNI, that is per capita income, human asset index, which includes many components, including health, education, etc., and also vulnerability index, economic vulnerability index, that includes like diversification of the economy, what type of exports and all these, the closeness to the market, etc. So in 2018, Bangladesh fulfilled all these 3 criteria and was considered to be graduating. And in 2021, this year in February, once again, Bangladesh has fulfilled all these criteria. And this is one of the rare countries, I think the only country probably, there's the official from the Ministry of Commerce is here, so he can also elaborate on this, that it has achieved all 3 criteria. If you, according to the United Nations criteria, if you fulfill 2 criteria, then you are qualified. So Bangladesh has qualified, achieved all 3 criteria. So these are the achievements for a country. We're still a least developed country. So these are the achievements which you can't really ignore. But again, there is also other side of the coin. So now I will describe the other side of some of the features of the other side of the coins while I'm discussing that what we need to do if we really want to achieve or if we want to be a developed country in 2041. As you know, that according to Bangladesh's vision, Bangladesh wants to be a developed country in 2041. So in order to do that, I will focus on a few 4 or 5 areas where we should focus on during, in the next 20 years or so. The first one is that we have seen that the structural transformation from an agriculture to an industrial and service-oriented country. But then our economy is, when you talk about the export basket, we have a strategy of export to be an export-oriented country. But if you look at the export basket, it is just a single product. It is dependent on a single export, which is very risky because a country cannot really, progress, or it cannot be really complacent by being dependent on a single product. There can be various shocks, domestic and external shocks, which may be beyond our control. So when you talk about diversification by 2041, we need to diversify the export sector, but not only, looking at the RMG sector, we can also think of that how our agriculture, we can commercialize the agriculture and also export some of the products by commercialization and all this. This is one. The other area is that service sectors, it will be more service oriented. We have seen that the services, how it has increased over the years. But in order to have an efficient service sector, the quality of services has to be better, and behind each and every service, what works? Human resources mostly. Of course, technology will also work. I'll come to that later. So human resources quality will be very, very important. What we have seen that at this point in time, when you look at the labor market, job market, you will find that many youths are unemployed. Our national unemployment rate is 4.2%, but if you look at the youth unemployment, 10.6% is youth unemployed. But if you talk to a private sector or an employer, they would always say that we don't find any qualified person. So where is the problem? And many of them are bringing people from our neighboring countries, India, Sri Lanka, as mid-managers. So where is the problem? There is obviously a mismatch between the demand and supply. So the graduates we are producing at university or any other educational institutes, they are not being able to meet the demand or the qualifications which are required by or the skills required by the employers. So we'll have to focus on the skills or the educational qualification or the efficiency of what the demand of the market is. So there should be a bridge between the industry and the educational institutes. When you develop I can't, claim because I'm not a university, professor. But with due respect, I would, these are my observations, and we have worked a lot on youth employment and also that, how to bridge the gap in the labor market when youths are in the market. So we feel that there should be, more communication. And also when you design a curriculum, maybe it should be a collaborative effort so that we know that what the market demands. Because in our country, we always look for, if we have a university degree, we feel that's the end of it. But then the demand for the market may be different. So we'll also have to address that because, of course, education is the first step. It's a stepping stone, but also we have to cater to the demand of the market. And also this is a skill development is a continuous process. So it can start right from the beginning throughout your life. So that's one aspect I want to highlight, that if you want to be a developed country in 2041, this is one aspect. Quality of human resource is I think, is the key to our progress, because behind every development effort, it's the human resource. And needless to say that our educational quality, unfortunately, is not at par with many other, center of excellence in the world. This is one. The other issue I have mentioned about the ready-made garment sector, which is the single product. You will also know that since we are going to graduate by 2026, this year we have qualified, and after 2026 we will graduate, then many of the benefits of the least developed countries which they enjoy, those will be gone. One of the important benefits to be a least developed country is that our duty-free, quota-free market access in the developed countries and also in some of the developing countries. At this point in time, we enjoy duty-free, quota-free market access under the generalized system of preferences in the European market and many other countries. In fact, European economies, they provide DFQ of access under this EBA, everything but arms. So that's the best, facility. And also in many, countries, Canada, Australia, Japan, to some extent USA also, and even in China, then India also to some extent. So this is going to be decline or reduced totally, but there will be opportunity, and I know that government official is here. For our government stance is that, of course, graduation is, of course, very good in the sense that it will improve your status in the international arena, and we will be able to overcome the challenges which are there. In order to overcome one of this challenge, I'll mention one or two more challenges. Is that we can very well take advantage of the GSP, General System of Preferences, new GSP plus, what is called GSP plus. The European Union is going to have a new GSP plus from 2024 for another 10 years. However, and we can take advantage of that. Many countries are taking advantage of that. However, in order to avail that GSP plus, Bangladesh has to really prepare. It has to ratify 32 treaties. And these treaties are very stringent. There are stringent compliances. And these compliances are not only in terms of adhering to labor rights issues, but also many other aspects, including climate change and environmental compliances. So that's why we would look forward to that, but we will have to work towards that so that we can achieve those compliances. This is one. Then I spoke about the quality of education. So when you related to that is that the future actually is going to be a transformation or transition from a factor-driven economy to a productivity-driven economy. That is that, we have number of, when you want to produce a product, you need, what do you need? Labor, capital, machinery, and also infrastructure. So our strength was that we have human resources, a lot of people are there. But then that's not quite efficient, though it is very important to provide employment. But then in the international market, if you want to compete, that's not the efficient way of doing or producing. So we have to rely now, we have to make a transition towards higher productivity. For example, you see that when we, in the international market, we export ready-made garments, but if you look at the composition or our market share, we export to the low-end market. Whereas if you look at the China, for example, high-end market. So if we really want to do that, to penetrate into the high-end market, we have to have more skilled labor force, and we also have to have technology. Now, when you talk about technology, the fear is that technology is going to displace many human resources. But that is the reality. We are already into the phase of fourth industrial revolution. In the developed countries, that is happening already in our country also. And we have, during our COVID-19 period, we have seen that how technology is taking over. Many work you can now do sitting at home. You don't have to visit or travel to your office or a factory. So it is going to engulf our day-to-day life, our production style, everything. So how do you then, make this, how do you reconcile this contradiction? Because on the one hand, we have so many people who are waiting to, get a job, but on the other hand, we are inviting technology, and we have to, there is no other option. So, and technology is something that, whoever has the technology, that person or that company is powerful. You see in the Western countries, which are the companies which are dominating in the market, in the share, in the, in the, what do you call it, New York Stock Exchange and all these tech companies, and who have been so profitable during this COVID, all these tech companies. So they, it is all encompassing. It is going to be. So, and also when you talk about, I'm talking about the, productivity increase in the ready-made garments and many other factors, because if you want to be efficient, you have to look at that, per human resources, how many products you're producing. There's a huge gap. So that's why there is a need for actual policy and implementation of this. So first of all, we have to embrace technology, but then technology will also create a lot of jobs. Now, in order to take advantage of those jobs which will be created, we need to have skilled human resources so that they can be re-employed on those jobs. Reskilling and upskilling is one thing. Then the others who will be really displaced, they will have to be given an opportunity to do something on their own. So self-employment will be another factor. For that also, capacity building, reskilling will be needed. But on top of that, what will be needed is that access to finance, because someone who will be just starting a business to survive, that person is not going to get any money from any bank, any commercial bank or anywhere. So that access to finance will be one of the important key factors. And for that, you need government's policy issues. There comes the issue of government intervention, policy changes. The other issue is that women's participation in the labor force. During the last 5 decades or so, we have seen women's participation has increased, and now about 36% women are in the labor force, but we want 50%. And in order to do that, again, who will be most in a disadvantageous situation? Women, when technology will come, because though we see that at this point in time, we see many university graduates. We see a number of girls who are doing very well, and they are also entering the labor force, maybe in the banking sector or in telecommunications or any other, or teaching or all. But even if you look at the share, it's not at par, it's not equal share. So firstly, their participation in education will have to be increased, and then their participation in the labor force will have to be also increased. And when technology will come, one of the important sources, again, ready-made garment sector, where women's participation is higher than men, they will be the first one to lose their jobs. At one point in time, that the women labor force is to be 80% in the ready-made garments. We had undertaken a study which shows that their participation is now 60%. So where did this 20% go? many factories are now adopting to technologies, and then they are, again, women work in the low end areas where you need less technical skills and general skills. So they are the first one to lose but this was one of the important sectors to empower women. So we'll have to be very mindful. So I will not take much time. The last point I would also like to highlight, and I think this is the most important, whatever we have said and done, and we are urging, if we cannot address this one, our whole existence, not only development, our whole existence will be at risk. And that is the impact of climate change. You know that the COP26, Conference of Parties, 26th Conference of Parties under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that has been just over yesterday. And many of you who follow that, there have been some commitments before the conference. Also, many countries, particularly the advanced countries, even some developing countries also, have made their commitments to reduce carbon emission, which is one of the major contributor of greenhouse gas emission. And the target is that by the middle of this century, by 2050, the carbon emission will be lowered so that the global temperature can be below 2% degrees Celsius, preferably within 1.5 degrees Celsius. But despite many countries' huge commitment of reducing carbon, if we are going business as usual, we will not still be reaching that target by 2050. So what the irony is that Bangladesh, being a poor country, a least developed country, and also being a least emitter of carbon emitter, Bangladesh's contribution of greenhouse gas emission in the global context is only 0.35% of the global emission. However, we are at the receiving end of the outcome of the vulnerabilities of the impact of climate change. So that's why we are seeing that frequency of natural disasters, cyclone and all these, and Bangladesh happening more frequently. And Bangladesh is also vulnerable to the impact of sea level rise, the coastal areas. So by 2050, 2/3 of the country will be flooded because of this sea level rise, global warming also. So this is going to be disastrous. And already we are seeing many impact. So that's why Bangladesh, of course, will be striving for undertaking economic activities in such a way which will reduce carbon emission. But our concern is more on adaptation, that how we survive from the negative impact of climate change. Now, if there are floods and cyclones, how we give shelter to the people, particularly the poorest people. They are the first ones to be affected. How do we give them safe shelter? How do we ensure their livelihoods? How do we ensure our agriculture production, industries, all these? So our effort is to adapt to the whole situation. Our scientists have now, invented water tolerant rice and all. Many will need to adapt to the situation by innovation and all this. However, for that we need technology. So technology is one fundamental issue, both for mitigation, like if you want to reduce carbon, but also for adaptation, that we want to make better buildings and better cyclone resistant shelter and all these, or economic activities which will be scientifically designed and all this. So that will be one. Technology will be the key one. But second one is also needed, is that finance, because in order to have technology, you need finance. And finance is also not only for all these new types of activities, but also providing new professions to many people who will be losing their profession. This traditional type of profession may not be there 20, 30, 40 years later. So that is the second one. Third one is that even if you are provided with technology, we have to know how to use that. So capacity building is again the other criteria for adapting to the whole impact of climate change. So these are, of course, not our problem. These are global problem, but we'll have to also prepare for that. And that's why it is so important that Bangladesh makes its voice heard at the global international arena. Bangladesh's Prime Minister is the president of Climate Vulnerable Forum, and she has been urging the global community, raising her voice for the voice to the developed countries to do their share, to their part. So technology and finance know that that's also important, but some will come from, mostly it should come from the international sources, but also in our own country also finance has to be mobilized. Of course, the government alone cannot, in no country, government alone cannot provide finance. It is the private sector which has to come forward in order to introduce new technology, and also in order to skill the workers and undertaking many other actions. So the private sector should be another source of climate finance, and also the multilateral development banks or sort of many other sources have to be blended. So a sort of a blended finance mechanism have to be generated. So that's what we need to do. I should stop here. I'm I have taken too much time. But my final point, and to summarize that, what is my my one-liner is that whatever we have achieved, we have done well, but I think this is and in numbers, we have done quite well. But we also have to think about the inclusivity and the distributional aspect of development. We have increased our GDP, we have increased our per capita income, all these, but at the same time, our inequality is also increasing in terms of income inequality, consumption inequality, and also wealth inequality. So on the one hand, we see that Bangladesh is among the top countries where the number of rich people are increasing at a very fast rate, but we are also seeing that the inequality is not reducing. Gini coefficient is increasing. And also because of the COVID-19, this situation might have aggravated. The numbers from various studies and surveys are showing that the number of poor people has increased, and many of them have lost jobs, income. So to bring them to the labor market and give them job opportunities, the government will have to also, come forward. I wanted to stop, but then let me just, say another thing, that of course the effort by the government in terms of providing stimulus package, that has been useful. But then again, when you talk about that, who are going, staying behind. In case of stimulus packages also, we have seen the smaller ones have not been benefited much. So if we really want to reduce the gap of inequality, and we want to make growth inclusive, and we also want to achieve a just society, then we'll have to look at the quality of growth. So this is the time in 2041, my desire and my dream would be that we look for we make a transition from quantity to quality. So this is the time that we make this move. Let us have a development which looks at the qualitative part of development rather than quantitative numbers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fahmida Khatun. So may I request to come to the podium, Dr. Onanno Raihan, Chairman, iSocial.
Good evening, Honorable Chief Guest of today's occasion, the panelists. I feel like home because I see Dr. Niaz is here, Dr. Tayyibur Rahman, then my colleague, former colleague, Dr. Fahmi that just spoke, and also Dr. Mahmood. So it's almost like home. And also there's other reason that I was attached to IUB back in 1998 to 2000 with the MBA program at that time. And I always feel good when I get a chance to come to an academic institution like this. And thank you for giving me that opportunity. I know that we are behind the time, so I have 10 minutes. So I'll try to stick to the time so that we can listen to other speakers as well. And also, like I was mentioned, that we have been from the morning here, so some exhaustion might be there. Dr. Fahmida told that we are at the crossroad, Bangladesh at the crossroad. I would say not only Bangladesh, the whole globe is at the crossroad. Just look at the history of 1920s or 30s in Europe. If you look at two things, that rise of authoritarianism and the fascism, which actually germinated at that time, and we have evidence the Second World War. And the world has changed since then significantly. And we are now at a time when we are experiencing COVID-19, and it took away more than 5 million lives. And the economies are still grappling to adjust, trying to show resilience in Bangladesh and abroad. But there are a few very ominous signals, and we should not ignore them. One is global inflation. Look at the WFP food production and price data. We are going to expect a very volatile food market. And already 23 million of people in Bangladesh are new poor. And these poor people and more people are going to be poor probably if we are unable to manage this price shock from the global food market. We already have started seeing the volatility in the energy market, and that already started impacting our daily lives. So these are the two signals, but there are other signals, like Dr. Fahmida was mentioning. The climate change, we see annual circus in different countries in the name of COP, and nothing is happening. So where is the an area of hope? Those things actually we need to consider when we talk about transformation in Bangladesh, economic and social transformation. So one thing I'm proud about Bangladesh, when we decided as a country to build Padma Bridge ourselves with our own money. Probably that is the one single achievement of Bangladesh since independence, the confidence we got about ourselves. When we say that we transformed from the aid dependent to trade dependent, I think this one single achievement actually has been taking us forward as a nation and will take us forward further. So when we say transformation, what are the transformations we're expecting in next 20 years? Now we are at the 2021 and 2041. In the 50 years of existence of Bangladesh and in last one decade, there are some dramatic changes in the visuals, I would say, economic visuals, like lots of flyovers, bridges like Padma Bridge is going to open next year, the Kornofuli Tunnel, and there are many monumental, I'd say projects are going to be completed pretty soon. So there is one aspect of it. But if we look at the quality of life of general citizen, I think we have to worry about because the not only Gini coefficient, but also Palmer ratio, because it was told that Gini coefficient does not reflect the disparity between rich and poor. So you have to use Palmer ratio. But Palmer ratio also has been deteriorated in last 5 years drastically, actually. So we should not ignore this kind of signal when we talk about. And personally, I believe when in academia, one thing is different than in other sector. That is the courage to question, courage to challenge the status quo. And that is important actually for all of us. And I believe that IOB is one of the best institutions in the country where the students, the teachers, the researchers will look into not only being satisfied with the successes, but also look into the loopholes and the upcoming challenges. That would be very important for us not to be derailed from the achievements we have already actually have seen. I have been working, I started my career as a academician. I studied in a country which is no more there, Soviet Union. But I feel proud that I studied there, because studying there and visiting European countries opened my eyes. What is good and what is bad in so-called capitalist economy and so-called socialist economy. So having said that, I think the dialectics is probably the best science to explain things and also identify the mismatches, which sometimes we do not see in traditional regression models actually. So I'd like to request you also to think about the application of so-called non-traditional research methods when we actually look into some issues. So I have been working, like I said, that I started my career with teaching, and then I came into policy research. I worked for Center for Policy Dialogue for 5 years, then came into entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship. And I'm also ending this social entrepreneurship journey very soon, and probably will come back again to academia because there are lots of lessons learned. And one of the major lessons learned is that the development paradigm in Bangladesh and in other countries, which is no more donor-funded development model is going to function anymore for multiple reasons, because we are now going to be middle-income country. Probably do not need foreign aid anymore. I'm not sure, but probably that is the intention, that we do not need foreign aid anymore. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect is that the attention of the donors have shifted from Bangladesh or countries like Bangladesh to other countries. And again, for some specific reasons. And the role of NGOs in Bangladesh since independence, starting with BRAC and many organizations, many of them became global as well. And Bangladesh created an example that how to transform a country and making it resilient, along with the government and other stakeholders. So the development sector, the resource will not be pumped in anymore. It is drying very quickly. If you look at the NGO Bureau data, how many NGOs are receiving foreign funds, it's less than 50% NGOs are receiving funds. So this is again a big signal, because through NGOs, billions of dollars have been pumped into Bangladesh economy. So what is going to happen and how the Bangladesh government is going to fill in the gap, because that will be needed. Because like I've said, the Palma ratio and other indicator shows that we have to continue the support. The public goods approach needs to be continued. Only market-based approach probably will not work. So that also you have to think. Recently, Professor Wahiduddin Mahmood brought an idea actually. So when we say we are a developing middle-income country, how does a middle-income country look like? What is the difference between a middle-income country and a poor country when you walk through the street? Is it like now when we get into the bus, standing in the bus, then we fight for the fare. The buses are deplorable. It's very shabby conditions. Roads are dirty, and so on and so on. So the not only narratives, we are talking about narratives, but also visuals of the middle income country probably would be important for us to look at. Not only just the per capita income or GDP growth and so on, but the visuals of the growth and prosperity needs to be addressed if we really want to see the result of our transformation. And then finally, I'd like to make 2 points. You may not agree with me that in 50 years, that's tremendous set of achievements, but probably we are getting into the hands of crony capitalism in Bangladesh. And that we have to be aware of. And the second point is that globally, not only in Bangladesh, I have been working with digital transformation in Bangladesh since last 20 years. I see that a lot of changes happened, and the digital Bangladesh agenda is mostly successful, I would say. But the next 20 years probably would be challenging in terms of achieving success in the digital domain, because like was said that the digital economy has natural tendency to monopoly. Look at the giants like Facebook or Google. The growth of e-commerce in Bangladesh is now in trouble. I hope that it will overcome this very soon. But how to protect the local growth of e-commerce from like giants of Alibaba or Amazon? And what are the policy issues are there? We have to really think about that. How about the global advertisement market, which is captured by Google? And a lot of antitrust sues in Europe, but we are still bystanders and observers. So I think we have to seriously look at that. And moreover, the issue of privacy and security of individuals, companies, and the country as a whole, the cyber threats. Cyber threats on the country is real. Cyber threats are on the individual companies are very real. And most importantly, the cyber security of individuals, how we are being monitored, how the data captured from us is being used. And that would be important for us to really see a happy, prosperous countries. So actually, my idea is to put some questions rather than being only happy with our success. But if we really want to move forward in next 20 years, we have to look at these issues. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Ananda Raihan. May I request to come to the podium, Professor Imtiaz Hussain, GSG IUB. Imtiaz, please.
I'd like to say hello again, especially all of you who've been here all day. I know how tired you are, but let's get to the bottom of everything. I really would like to first thank those who first brought me into this conference. And in order of communications, let me just mention them and kindly stand up. Marjuk, Mahmood, and Sharmeen. All of you asked me for help. I gave you help. And let's look at their faces. Those from Global Studies and Governance, Shanawaz, Marufa. Oh, I didn't know they bunk. Moin, Ryan, 1 out of 4. We have our gatekeepers, global gatekeepers, anyone here? You are all now ungatekeepers. But thank you. I really wanted to bring them out because they have sweated, and they have sweated for weeks. Let me turn to, I think all of you know my identity, and it is basically governance and publications. And that's what I would like to focus on now. I think I don't know about you, but my cup of developed country, Bangladesh, is overflowing. So I'm going to change the topic. I want to get back here and look at the issues that you have spelled out. I didn't attend all of them, but as part of governance, I think we've covered quite a few. The first one, Rohingyas. I think Rohingya, the way it is going, after 4 years of research writing on it, we are ending up putting old wine into new bottle. You're not going to have any cutting edge doing it. There are some new issues that have not been touched. One was mentioned today in the first session, in the second session, and that is the Bhashanchar shift. And that is one area that can be cultivated. A second area, when the Rohingyas came, they were the majority. Now they are a minority. The local community have been completely wiped off from the attention span. That is another area because in the next 10, 20 years, they will have some reactions. We need to pay some attention to that. Number two, coping strategy and informal economy. This one reminds me of the 1920s pandemic. You know what that was? That was between the transition from the second industrial revolution based on the assembly line, the Henry Ford T model in 1911. That's when it was created, and it was shifting towards that model from the traditional model. So it was between two industrial revolutions, just like this one is between the third and the fourth. So that's a huge area of investigation that you can look into. You have emphasized RNG workers here. I would like to broaden it. I think we should look at labor in general, and labor is needed because we are now shifting into building infrastructures. Look at all the mega projects. There will be many more like that. We need to build up experts as well as the workers on the mega projects type, infrastructural type of skills. The third one, environment and climate change. You say a lot about, sanitary pads and whatnot, but the point here is that if you're going to train people, it's not just filling them up with knowledge. They have to get it into their system. If it's not in their system, it's not going to work, whether it is the environment or anything else. How do you do it? I think the attention should now shift from all the knowledge being dumped on people on what you must do to promote the environment, then how they can get it inside them, the instinct. And this can be done very easily, even in classes. We have been able to do that from kids in primary school. Why cannot we do it now? It is an exercise worth experimenting. The fourth panel, this fourth panel really drives me up the wall. Digital Bangladesh, and we go gaga. I mean, we are absolutely lost in this. When you break it down into bits, what is it? It is just another elite conversation between one elite and another. Where are the masses? How are you bringing them in? Just by throwing the word digital Bangladesh, I mean, we are climbing 20, 30 staircases. That's not the way to do it if the country is what we are looking at. Remember, it's a developed country, not a developed Gulshan or Baridhara. It is the whole thing that we are looking at. So it cannot just be a digital Bangladesh unless that trickles down. Where is your trickle down mechanism here? Number 5, community and context. Communities and context. Here, research is the big thing here, but the point is research and development, R&D, doesn't just fall from the sky. We have to build it. If we are building the next generation who will be born in this so-called 2041 developed Bangladesh, Do they know about research and development? Are we teaching them that in our classes? Are we really doing it honestly? Can you tell yourself you are? What is it that will make us teach them that we can see the changes when they graduate? We are Skimago number 1 IUB. And I can tell you, 60, 70, 80% of our students cannot write a coherent sentence in English. Cannot we do something about that first before we go bombard them with new jargons? We need to pay some attention to that. Panel number 6, public health. This is a place where we should get some lessons out of the COVID pandemic. What did we learn from it? Have our hospitals, for example, done something extra? Can we do research on what they are doing? Can we go up to our Department of Public Health? Can you tell us what marginal difference has the pandemic made on our emergency responses, hospital care centers, and whatnot? These are the changes that build up the infrastructure. We're going to need the health infrastructure. By the end of this century, there will be fewer people in Bangladesh than there are now. And it will be an older population. Have we done anything about looking at social security or health care for that population? Unless we begin now, this is the big jerk that we need, like they got in the 1920s through the pandemic then, the Mexican flu, that we must get now, 10, 20 years ahead of time. Number 7, living with refugees. What can I say? I think I did touch this one. Is the local community that we really need to, they are a minority. And what and how are they responding? It is not that they have also lost the land, but the environmental damage, and this is the other great thing I heard this morning from, I think it was the Dutch ambassador, that the environmental money they're putting to restore the Chittagong or Chottogram hill tracts, this I had not heard before. Another huge area of investigation research. 8, governance and inclusive development. SDG, we've heard lots about that. And the great thing is that why don't we just treat it like we treated microfinance? It was our invention. We got Nobel Prize and whatnot with it. Why don't we treat SDG just like we did that? We can do it. It's just that why are we not doing it? Why are we always talking about it? Can we do whatever we do here to what we do here? That is the big difference. Number 9, Rohingya crisis through the lens of security. Not a single person from China, India, Myanmar is engaged in this. And without them, you can do nothing about it. Should we spend more time, energy on this when the bigwigs are just not interested? Cannot our talent be better used somewhere else? So think about it. Security, very little we can do just by putting it there and spending so much time on it. Number 10, regionalism is my response. It is foreign policy, anything about the environment, anything about the Rohingyas, whatever it is, whichever way you look at it. Online education, we are using global platforms. So whichever way you look at it, we are looking outside the country. We have done nothing, absolutely nothing on regional trade integration. Lots of negotiations are going on privately. Have we excavated that area? We see SARC and everything else being mentioned, BIMSTEC and everything else. What about the Vietnam and the Indonesia and the Thailand that we are having private negotiations with? Their ambassadors are coming, even in the last 3 months. They've all come, first thing they've said in the airport, we are here to make a trade agreement, free trade agreement with Bangladesh. Where is our research? Skimago number 1, where are you? Number 11. This is, what can I say, the first industrial revolution and the fourth industrial revolution. The gap between them is, I don't know what to say about it. You've heard on this panel also, the widening gap between the haves and the have-nots. And the RMG, we are so hooked onto RMG. It's like বাচ্চাদেরকে যে ABC শিখতে হবে to be educated. RMG না শিখলে we are not educated এখন. Can we move out of the RMG? There are 23 other alphabets in the dictionary. And I mean, we are even thinking about automated RMG. Well, why don't we think of getting out of RMG, building, shipbuilding, for example, automobiles, for example, diversification. খালি ওই একটা নিয়ে সারা জীবন 14 গোষ্ঠী সব এখন ওটা নিয়ে ঘুমাবে. All this surgery, RMG, come on. Bangladesh, you know better than that. Acha, I won't take much more time. Let me go to number 13, education, new frontier. Again, IUB has the cutting edge here, which we are not utilizing and which we should. Everyone who's been in it should push this further. And that is LFE, education in the new frontier. How many people in the countryside know about what you're talking about? How do we include it in the LFE, the live-in field experience that we have? These are big issues that I think, and it also points to something else. Are we at the beginning of the end of institutionalized education? Now that we have online, why come to the university? Think about it. What can we do to attract students who might not even want to come? This is going to be the $1 million question for every single year from now on. And finally, panel 14. I think we need to be a little careful here. As we are becoming richer, moving up towards that DC target, home, heaven, whatever you call it, are we also not becoming a little too nationalistic about it? Nationalism যে একটু বাড়তেছে আমাদের এখন. Our cricket team is doing horrible, but we are still becoming nationalistic. As a fourth industrial revolution citizen, we should be completely cosmopolitanized. And this is the big thing that we need to bring out. How can we control automatic nationalism for predestined cosmopolitanism? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Imtiaz, sir. So may I now request our chief guest for today's event, Mohammad Hafizur Rahman, Additional Secretary and Director General, WTO, Ministry of Commerce. Hafiz, by floor to you.
Distinguished guests, Professor Imtiaz Hussain, Dr. Ananya Raihan, Dr. Fahmida Khatun, Professor Niyaz Ahmed Khan, all other speakers and delegates, and also saw some colleagues from public organizations. Dear audience, Assalamu alaikum, and very good evening to all of you. First, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to IUB Authority to invite me as the chief guest. I appreciate the authority for organizing these seminars. I saw that as many as 14 sessions they have run on different issues. And all the issues are very much important and significant in terms of many areas for our country and economy. I see, I don't know why, but I believe because of the present situation, IOB has emphasized on Rohingya issues. They have arranged as many as 3 sessions on Rohingya issues through in different dimensions, living with Rohingya, repatriation and the Bashan Shore, and some other issues also. We know, as it is mentioned, that Bangladesh in 2041, that has been stated here, nations and narratives of diversification and transformation. This is the issue. And finally, we are here to speak on this policy conference. My duty here is not to speak so much because being a bureaucrat, I have limitation of knowledge and power to speak. But I'm here to listen to you, take your guidance, to reflect it in the policy so that your suggestions come into the policy and become a reality. And through implementing those issues, we can develop our nation. The target is set here is 2041. We know the government has taken one vision, 2041, or perspective plan 2041, to become a developed country by this time. Based on our experience of Vision 2021. So this Vision 2041, it started from 2021, from this year, and will achieve a certain level of development by these 20 years. And targeted achievements will be in different areas. As is in the perspective plan, it is mentioned that our per capita income by this time will be $12,500 by 2041. And GDP growth rate by 2031, where Bangladesh will be a higher middle income country, the growth rate will be 9%. And by 2041, it will be 9.9%. I don't know, by this pandemic, this target will be achievable or not, especially the target of becoming a higher middle income country by 2031. This is an issue of concern. And some other criteria, that's the one important issue is the poverty. Reducing the extreme poverty less than 1% by 2041. It's an attractive target, I believe, that what we are struggling with for a long time, along with some other perpetual problems, poverty is one of them. And among the many other issues in the perspective plan, there are some important issues that already been discussed in different sessions today. I like to mention that about the investment issue. I don't know how you discussed it. In our policy paper, we have it to make it investment GDP ratio at 40%. Now it's 29.9% in Bangladesh. We believe that within 2041, we'll be able to increase our investment GDP ratio by that level. And another very important issue is that to achieve these targets, to fulfill the Vision 2041, we need to develop our human resources. Government has well planned, I believe, that to develop this human resource in different ways. One is to develop the institution of a knowledge-based economy, population with 100% literacy rate, very attractive issue, universal free education for up to 12 years, and flexible supply of training institutions for all who seek to acquire job-based skills. What our respected guest, Dr. Fahmida, mentioned, that institution and industry demand and supply doesn't match with each other. So this matching should be done so that institution can provide supply of human resource that is demanded by the industry. And universal access to health insurance schemes at affordable prices, 100% coverage of employment, worker safety, accidental safety mainly, and ensuring medical facilities for all. These are the issues. You also discussed about the fourth industrial revolution, along with Rohingya political issues, foreign policy issues. This is the most advanced issue, we believe. We are going through this fourth industrial revolution, and Bangladesh government has already formulated that what we'll do to go smoothly, achieve the highest benefit from this fourth industrial revolution, how to go ahead. The target is to liberalize trade continuously with support from the technology, facilitate trade to reduce cost and increase speed of trade. I'm from the trade, I'm working with the trade issues, so my lens will be to see all things through trade. So I'll try to make something trade related. And I believe that when we talk about growth, the engine of growth, I believe in Bangladesh has been considered as the trade. Trade has been considered the growth of engine. Even in many countries, trade is the main engine of growth. So we have to think trade, how we can integrate trade into our economy and expedite trade. We like to integrate with global value chain, with evolve, consolidate digital innovation in industry and trade will drive competitiveness over the long run. Micro multinationals will emerge and thrive. Therefore, over the next 20 years, our target, the government's targets will be expedite to use the technology for expanding the trade, liberalize the trade, and facilitate the trade. Our speaker already mentioned, we have some challenges about trade because with our perpetual challenges of climate change effect, poverty, we have now at the crossroad of LDC graduation. You know, by 2026, we will be graduated from the LDC status and we'll have to face some challenges. We'll lose some benefits under the WTO regime that will make the economy a little bit challenging to face those issues. If we are not ready to face those challenges, economy will have to face a drawback that will hamper to achieve the 2031 or 2041 targets. We know after 2026, only European Union and UK, they have promised to keep their EVA facilities and GSP facilities for additional 3 years. Maybe after that, we'll get the GSP Plus, as Dr. Fahmida mentioned. GSP Plus, earlier, it had some problem because the input criteria, which Bangladesh was not in compliant. So we thought that we are losing the GSP Plus criteria. From EBA, we'll have to directly fall into the standard GSP scheme. But recently, European Union has declared its draft policy to changing the regulation that's where Bangladesh can get the GSP Plus with limited or reduced input criteria. But additional concern has recently developed about the safeguard issue. That's European Union has imposed this. If any product, total export under any scheme, especially the GSP scheme, if any product individually exceed 9% of total import, then that product will be graduated. There's the product graduation, and it will be curtailed under the safeguard issue. So this is one big issue because RMG has already crossed 9+% of import into the EBS scheme, under the EBS scheme into European Union. It's almost 15 to 16%. So it will be a challenge. We don't know how we shall face the challenge. We have different action plans actually. Even we have one target to have an FTA with European Union so that we can retain the market for the long run and other export markets, though they are the developed countries, so it will be difficult to sign FTAs because this kind of countries, they sign FTAs with a lot of other issues like intellectual property rights, labor issues, subsidies, services, so many issues that we still have to be develop capacity to sign those kinds of FTAs complying with those kinds of requirements. Different studies shows this. Even one WTO studies mentioned that after graduation, we will lose 14.94% of our export. Total export will drop by 14.94%, which is almost around 7 to 9 billion US dollar. We know we are exporting right now around 4 billion US dollar, 40 billion US dollar. Though last year it was less, but this time our target is around more than 40. You know, in RMG sector, there are 4 million workers working. That is 40 lakh worker. If we lose 1 billion export, that means 1 billion will reduce job by 1 lakh workers. Recently, IMF has forecasted that by pandemic, Bangladesh will lose around 5 million jobs during and after the pandemic issues. So these are the big concern for us to do. Go ahead. One of the topic of today's policy conference was diversification and transformation. That's the favorite issue of mine. We are working with OECD for this diversification and transformation issue. Recently, next few days, within few days, we'll have a conference and OECD will conduct a study for production transformation policy review in Bangladesh. We took diversification, even we heard from Professor Imtiaz that we are relying only on garments, RMG. So this is the A only. We should also look for next remaining 25 alphabets so we can do export many other things. You know, 80%, more than 80% of our export are going only on with RMG. So it's a critical issue. Many speakers told that it's a risky issue for any country, not only for Bangladesh. So that depending on these kinds of product concentration, make it difficult when the importing country or the global environment changes. Recently, it is changing already. The RMG sector is changing from natural fiber to man-made fiber. So our present demand in the world demand has become more dependent on man-made fiber, artificial fiber, not from cotton. So Bangladesh had to be compliant with changing issues. So anytime many other issues may come, once we had jute products, so we were proud about those products. When plastics, fibers, and this type of issues came, so our jute dropped. We have to be prepared for that kind of situation. We have to diversify our product, certainly. And at the same time, we have to diversify our market also. We have so more than 50% market concentration to European Union. So if European Union creates any impediments for our export, there is possibilities. In the WTO, they have submitted different kinds of environment protection related requirements. They are asking for border carbon management mechanism. They have proposed it. And that means that while importing into European Union with high carbon footprint, they will impose high tariffs. Being an LDC, we know that our products are mostly say, not very environment friendly. But recently, some industries within the RMC sector, they have developed green industries. Among the 10
top green industries in the world. Bangladesh has 7 industry within the green, and 91 industry has been certified by leadership, energy and environment development. That's an authority in those countries. So our target is to diversify the product. Those products may be different. Maybe shipbuilding. Shipbuilding recently is facing trouble. We had a lot of expectation within shipbuilding, but recently the bubble has already burst. We are focusing on light engineering products. We believe that this product has huge opportunity. The people are using mobile phones and other technological products day by day. So if we can concentrate our production and we can participate in the value chain in that area, so we can export more. We target to focus on diversified RMG, vertically integrated products. We have taken a scheme to diversify high-end product of RMG and also some other products, plastic products, ceramics, leather, and some other products also. So these are the areas that we like to diversify our product and also like to engage with FTAs through FTS and PTS, also comprehensive economic partnership with our export markets so that we can retain the market after the graduation. You know, intellectual property rights, this is also one issue that we are working with it. Being an LDC, we don't have to abide by the intellectual property rights, the TRIPS embargo, but after graduation, we'll have to face the trouble of implementing the intellectual property rights. The IPR has 2 issues. One, if we don't abide by it, we can use pirated products, books, software, everything. On the other hand, if we implement or enforce the intellectual property rights law, then investment will come. Those people with R&D capacity, they will invest in Bangladesh, and our domestic R&D will come ahead. Many inventors will come with a lot of their inventions that is necessary for any development. So target is to strengthen the implementation on intellectual property rights in Bangladesh. One concern we have that's after graduation, our pharmaceutical sector that has the patent waiver until the graduation, or for LDCs it is 2033 1st January. So we believe that after graduation we will lose that facilities, and 25% of our product of our pharmaceutical sector will have to comply with patent requirements and have to get the license, which will increase the cost of medicine. And also we export medicines in 150 countries. So the export also will be hampered. The issues of environment is coming ahead. I mentioned the European Union submission, one for carbon border adjustment. Recently, they have submitted 2 more proposals in the WTO. One is on environmental goods issue. They were discussing this issue for long ago. Very recently, they have proposed one issue as for fossil fuel subsidy reduction issue. That's we are using the fossil fuel, gas, petroleum. So they are proposing that if we reduce the subsidy to the fossil fuel, then the fuel price will go up and people will use less fuel. Such the environment will be less polluted. On the other hand, if we can save money from not giving the subsidy, we can use that money to other sectors to get environment-friendly environment and production system. We don't know how we can do it, but in the perspective plan, we have clearly mentioned something. The government has mentioned clearly something that integrating environmental cost into the macroeconomic framework. So environment is always within all the policies. Implementing the Delta Plan, Delta Plan, build resilient and reduce vulnerability to climate change, reduce air and water pollution, removal of fuel subsidy. Recently, European Union has given this proposal, but we have already developed a plan in the perspective plan, Vision 2041, that will remove the fuel subsidy gradually. Adoption of green taxation on emission, this kinds of issue. Some other issues also are giving some concern in the WTO. On next 30th November to 3rd December, we'll have ministerial conference, 12th ministerial conference in the WTO. We have several issues there. For Bangladesh, one important issue is the graduation issue. We have submitted one proposal that after graduation, we'd like to continue the LDC specific special and differential treatment for 12 years. Recently, we have revised the submission. We asked that to grant those special and differential treatment that I told about, the preferential market access, intellectual property rights, all other issues for 6 to 9 years with a gradual phasing out. We don't know. We are expecting that by this ministerial we'll have a decision which will help in future after graduation to cope with the changing environment. For graduation, targeting the graduation issues, in the government formed a high-level committee headed by Principal Secretary, and under that committee we have 7 working subcommittees. They're working with 7 areas like market access, intellectual property rights, subsidies, tariff rationalization, very important issues that we have many researchers already mentioned that our tariff structure is anti-export biased. So we have to reduce that anti-export bias so that we can support our export. And tariffs also an impediment for signing FTS and PTS with other countries. So we believe that through these committees will prepare time-bound action plans within that 7 areas, and the government will implement them then sequentially day by day. And I believe that through these issues after graduation, along with other challenges, the graduation-related challenges will be addressed properly. I like to thank IUB authority. I'm taking this policy recommendation from them. So many of them are in line with the perspective plan. Some issues are new. I believe those will be helpful for us to work with the policy issues. I lastly thank the IUB authority, the distinguished speakers, panelists, those who have worked for this, and my colleagues. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I think that's, we are now at the end of today's session, so we are already been late, but most important task now I have been assigned to do the vote of thanks. So I'd like to start with the bottom-up approach. So you can see that those who've been in our 6th floor, all the 6th floor has been flourished with all the flowers, trees and green. So I think this is the one of the occasion I'd like to thanks out the gardener, cleaners and others who've been relentlessly doing all sort of the cleaning for the last 2-3 days. All our office managers who've been there from the last night also today, and also today the late night for delivering the tea, coffees and other. So this is the one of the aspects, and I would also like to thanks about or put my appreciations our clubs, particularly my beloved Anthropology Club, the Sociology Clubs, and also the Global Gatekeepers who've been relentlessly been involved with organizing the event, contextualizing the event, and also involved so many other aspects related to the event. And last but not least, the colleagues of my department, particularly Mahfouz Bhai, then we have got the volunteer with Zulkar, Maliha, the Mumu, we have got Lopa, we have got our office manager Fakiha, Parisa, Nadia, and also our own office assistant Rashid. So, and the last, I would like to thank Marzouk, my colleague, and because without his efforts, I cannot really, as a convener, it's not possible to run the whole conference. And last but not least, my captain, my head of the department, Sharmin Ahmed. So because without her relentless efforts, support, so it's not possible to really organize this event. And obviously, I would like to go for the top, the Vice Chancellor, Board of the Trustees, my Honorable Dean, and obviously, last not the least, Inter sir, because sir is instrumentalized when I come talk with the themes, whether he not likes or not, but we have a twisted another, but I can assure you, sir, that within your support, your comments, we will turn these conference in a real outcome with your assistance and whatever way that we can refining some of the topics, maybe within your tune with lines and obviously inclusion of the new topics, whatever else. Within these lines, so I'd like to conclude the today's session. So please bear with us for a few minutes because we have got the flower bouquets and also the crest given ceremony. So could I ask the volunteer to come over here? So we have got the crest. So may I request Nias to hand over the crest to our chief guest, Hafizur Rahman, that's additional director. Sir. May I request Dean to hand over the crest to Dr. Fahmi Dakhato, please. And also request Imtiaz to hand over the crest to Dr. Onnono Raihan. So kindly forget and bear with us the bits of this annual. You can see the how tired we are, and that's why I like mismanaging giving the flower. Thank you all, and please kindly allow us to be with us with our dinner. And last not to be the least, the crest. So our honorable Imtiaz. So I'd like to ask our dean sir to present the crest Imtiaz. Now, I like to take the opportunity to give the flower to Imtiaz sir as well. Yeah. Thank you. So may I request you to all join with us for dinner. I think the dinner is room 4044 is the level 3. So we'll be accompanying you to the dinner. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, sir.